Hello, everybody. Welcome. For those who don't know me, my name is Laura Renankowski, and I'm an international life and relationship coach. I'm not an astrologer, but I know a lot about astrology, and that's why I always give these talks about astrology. And today we're talking about Mercury retrograde. Which started yesterday. It started yesterday, and it lasts until the 22nd of June. So I'm going to talk about the different aspects of Mercury retrograde. I'm also going to talk about, what you can do, to navigate Mercury retrograde in a, in a better way, because I know that Mercury retrograde can sound very scary, but it's one of those things that, you have to feel, feel the fear and do it anyway. Don't let the fear paralyze you, right? Because I mean, there are challenging aspects. There are challenging aspects to Mercury retrograde, but I mean, you've gone through various Mercury retrogrades in your life, and I mean, it happens every year. It happens 3 or 4 times, So there's ways of navigating through it, and the more information you have about Mercury retrograde, the better, right? So that's the point. That's the point of this presentation today, to give you more information and to give you more tools, and to show you, how to navigate Mercury retrograde in a better way. All right. So the biggest Mercury retrograde of 2021 is here. Yay. So prepare yourself. Prepare yourself. This is, just the same way that you prepare yourself for any big things in life, right? If you have a big presentation, you prepare yourself for a presentation, you prepare yourself for an interview, anything that you do in life, you have to prepare for, right? So Mercury retrograde is the same thing. So this is the second Mercury retrograde of 2021, and it started on the 29th of May, and it lasts until the 22nd of June. So the planet of communications backward dance in Gemini, the planet of communication is Mercury, so it affects all communication on all levels. So it's going to uncover secrets. It's going to mess with our communication, and it can send us into a hectic, glitch-filled frenzy. But don't be scared. Don't be scared. It's good to know that these kinds of issues and problems can happen. But, the more information you have, the better you'll be able to navigate all of these challenges. So it's the most potent Mercury retrograde in all of 2021. So the good thing is that once we're out of this one, then the other ones won't be as bad or powerful. So there's only one thing to do now, and that's prepare. So we'll have the classic Mercury retrograde mess ups to worry about. Mercury retrograde affects travel, it affects communication, it affects technology, and it affects information. So all of those aspects are highlighted right now. It's beginning while Mercury is forming a conjunction with Venus. So expect to have misunderstandings within relationships. So especially this Mercury retrograde highlights relationships a lot, right? So be really careful. Be really careful, communicating with people in general, right? There can be a lot of miscommunications right now. Like especially when you write something, text messages many times, even when it's not Mercury retrograde, text messages can be misunderstood. And now, even more. So be really careful what you write. Be really careful what you write, and be really careful what you say, especially if you have a partner. So the Mercury retrograde, it's also happening in impulsive Gemini, because now we're in Gemini now. And Gemini is ruled by Mercury. So meaning that the planet is most comfortable in the sign of the twins. So this allows Mercury to reach its full-on trickster splendor. So expect to fall victim of its jokes, right? So So yeah, so so you know, it's basically highlighting that it can be very tricky. You know, it can be a very tricky time communication wise. This retrograde is happening right in the midst of eclipse season. You know, we just had a lunar eclipse. This week we just had a lunar eclipse, and it was a really powerful one because it was a blood super full moon with an eclipse in Sagittarius. So it was really, really strong, really strong. And it's forming a conjunction with the new moon eclipse that's happening on the June 10th, magnifying its power even more. It's really strong when there's two eclipses so close together, because we had an eclipse on the 26th of May, and now we're having another eclipse on the 10th of June. And eclipses are all about changes, like massive, massive changes. And for both of these eclipses to be happening during Mercury retrograde adds to the intensity, and it adds to the fun, right? It adds to, you know, how much miscommunication there can be on many different levels. So this retrograde will expose secrets, scandals, and it can add a bit of anxiety, you know, to our vibes. It's really important to be gentle with yourself and others, you know, especially like be gentle with yourself, but also others, you know, like don't be, and really you really have to watch what you say and what you write during Mercury retrograde, because what you say and what you write can be like misinterpreted on a completely different level. So be really, really careful with that. Give yourself extra time for projects and travel, and make sure your work is backed up in the cloud. Make sure that whatever you're working on is backed up. The only way out of Mercury retrograde is going through it. So taking any and all steps right now to prepare is a must. Because this transit is happening in chatty Gemini, your gatherings may be prone to turning into dishing sessions of gossip. So be really careful with the gossip, because like if you gossip and talk bad about people, that can really come back to you. Mercury and Gemini can have loose lips. When Mercury is retrograde, those messages can end up in the wrong hands or backfiring in your face. In other words, be extra cautious what you say and who you say it to. You never know who it'll get back to. And this applies for everything. I mean, in your own social circles, but especially at work as well. Be really, really careful who you talk about or what kind of gossip, you know, you talk about at work. So the second of the 3 Saturn-Uranus squares will take place on June 14th, which means that we can expect this Mercury retrograde to bring a lot of news that will impact our world. I mean, I don't know exactly what kind of news is going to, you know, be revealed, you know, soon. But I mean, it feels like a lot of information and big news will be revealed, you know, on a worldwide scale. During this time, it will be important to protect our psyche from information overload. So turning off our phones, getting off the screen, and protecting our energy will be key during this time. If there were ever a time to go with the flow, it would be now. So flexibility is the key here. Retrograde Mercury is not part of a cosmic plan to upset, delay, or screw things up. Rather, this is part of the natural cycle intended to be a time of reflecting and redoing things that need our attention. Even though it can be maddening at times, if you keep this perspective, you can make the most of this 3-week cycle. So basically, Mercury retrograde is an invitation to slow down, right? Because our lives, you know, tend to be very busy. I mean, of course, all of our lives have slowed down, you know, during lockdown. But even now, when we're going back to, you know, more normal lives, you know, little by little, you know, Mercury retrograde is an invitation to slow down and to really think about what you're doing. And especially, you know, think about what you say and think about what you write during Mercury retrograde. So don't be impulsive. Like, don't be impulsive at all during Mercury retrograde. Mercury retrogrades always make us feel restless, like we're not ticking the boxes off of our to-do list fast enough. But while the planet of communication is in retrograde, it's more important than ever to stop and smell the roses. In the fast-paced world we live in, it can feel like a punishment to have to slow down, but truthfully, it can be a blessing. It offers us an opportunity to tidy up, chill out, and get crystal clear on exactly what you need to do to further align with your truth. It'll be rocky, sure, but it's nothing we can't get through. So really, like, take this time to, for introspection, and really think about, like, what's important to you. This is a great time, for that. You can write things down for yourself, or meditate, or chant, or do whatever, whatever makes you feel good, and whatever makes you feel connected to yourself as well. This is all going down in the sign of Gemini. So mutable signs, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces are going to experience the most chaos during this retrograde. But actually, I'm Pisces, and I mean, I don't feel this Mercury retrograde yet at all. But that can change. I mean, I think I'm so tuned into the Neptune and Pisces energy right now. But of course, I'm very aware. I'm very aware of Mercury retrograde. Air signs Libra and Aquarius will have a much smoother experience now. For the next few weeks, expect technology glitches. Now is not the time to upgrade your phone. Past connections coming back, your ex texting you at 3 a.m., and all sorts of scheduling mishaps. So make sure your summer vacation plans are set in stone. Gemini is one of Mercury's favorite signs to hang out in, so this retrograde should be a little more gentle than others. But because Mercury in Gemini is about connecting with tons of people, and Venus is also in Gemini right now, this particular retrograde will bring back tons of exes. So watch out for the exes. Watch out for the exes coming back. And it's funny because yesterday was the first day of Mercury retrograde, and I actually saw my ex. I saw him from far away. But it's really funny that I saw him, and Mercury retrograde, brings back exes. So watch out with that. And if the exes do come back, really think about, really think if you want to go, down that road again. And, and actually the worst time to start a relationship is during Mercury retrograde. The worst time to start a relationship or sign any contracts. I mean, if you can help it, like, it's advisable, not to get married during Mercury retrograde, not to start a new relationship, not to sign job contracts, not to do any of those big decisions in Mercury retrograde. Of course, if you have to do it, it doesn't mean that it's going to be a disaster and it's not going to work out. But energetically, it's not the best time to to start new projects and to sign documents. So try to stay open-minded during this retrograde. You're revisiting past relationships, projects, and jobs for a reason. There's still more information you need to learn before you can decide whether you want to fully move on or start introducing these people, things back into your life. But since Mercury retrograde puts life in a state of flux, this is absolutely not the time to define a relationship or begin any new jobs if you can help it. So yeah, so remember that. Don't make any big decisions now. In fact, Mercury retrograde in Gemini is one of the most impatient, fast-paced transits, so it feels remarkably difficult to think in the long term. So slow down, stay grounded, and consider very carefully before making any decisions or starting important conversations if you want to avoid unnecessary drama. So it's all about slowing down. It's all about slowing down and really thinking about things thoroughly before doing something, before moving forward with something. So Mercury retrograde gets a bad rap for being super scary. But listen, Mercury retrograde occurs 3 or 4 times per year, which is a lot. And it's never totally life ruining. This is just a regular cycle that allows us to hit pause and reflect. Is it tough confronting the past? It sure is. But is it necessary? Is it necessary work? If you want to move on and go further in life, you bet. Be flexible, triple check your schedule, and try to think before you speak. That's key here. Really think before you speak. And you can make it through this retrograde unscathed. Okay, so now I'm going to give little hints and tips for each of the signs for this Mercury retrograde. So for Aries, the theme of your retrograde, think before you speak, Aries. And that applies to all signs, but especially Aries, because Aries is a fire sign and tends to be very impulsive. So you've lost your gift of the gab. Think very carefully before you speak. Spell check all your important emails. Make sure you're not leaving people on red. And some major conversations are coming up, but as long as you're thoughtful, patient, and considerate, you'll be absolutely fine. So that's the message for Aries. The message for Taurus. It's time to open all those letters from your bank that have been stacking up for the past 6 months. You've got to pour over your finances, make sure you're not overspending, and figure out how you can manage your money. The temptation to splurge on cute outfits or impulse buys is strong for the next few weeks, but you should really resist, trust me. So for Taurus, it's all about managing their money. So, be really mindful. Be really mindful of managing your money and don't overspend. Gemini. Mercury is going retrograde in your sign now. So for the next 3 weeks, you're attracting loads of new connections, but struggling to find the time to enjoy their company because you're too busy dealing with jobs, relationships, and other challenges from the past. If you're able to be prompt and responsible when you're dealing with these leftover obligations from the past, you'll totally be able to enjoy the end of your Gemini season. So for Gemini, it's about balancing, all of these things. And of course, Geminis will feel this Mercury retrograde in a really powerful way because it's in their sign. The Mercury retrograde is in Gemini. So of course, when it's in your sign, you feel it even more. For Cancer, this retrograde is lighting up your chart's 12th house, which governs the completion of cycles. So you're really getting your spot blown up by your ex. So for Cancers, it looks like there's a strong possibility of an ex coming back. You hate confrontation and almost always choose to avoid drama because you're so sensitive, but you can't put this off any longer. Just treat the beef like a Band-Aid. Grab it and rip it off. It'll be uncomfortable, but it'll be over in like 2 milliseconds. So you just got to do what's right for you. So for Cancer, it's about, it's really important to do what's right for you, what feels right for you. Leo, it feels like your social life is stuck in a demented game of musical chairs. There are tons of he said, she said texts going around, and you're going back and forth from people's good side to their bad list, and people are hectically shuffling in and out of your life. This is the time to keep it real with yourself. Who exactly is causing the trouble? Who in your crew is being toxic, shady, or just simply a bad friend? It's hard to cut people off, especially when you have history with them. But now's the time to clear out the duds from your social life so you can introduce new, better friends in the future. So for Leo, it's about, reevaluating, the people that you have around you, reevaluating, your friendships and all of that, So just, stay true to yourself. Virgo, this Mercury retrograde is a critical one for Virgo. You've just reached a big goal, or you're so close to reaching it. But before you can celebrate your victory, you need to deal with all the work you've been putting off in the meantime. So for Virgo, it's about, of course, for all signs, it's about, finding balance, but especially for Virgo. And Virgo is one of the signs that's really feeling this Mercury retrograde, in a very powerful, intense way. So focus on finding the balance. Focus on finding the balance of, you know, between the things that you've done and the things that you've neglected, or the things, you know, that are kind of like in a transition, you know, a transition mode. Libra, first things first, if you have any travel plans for the next month or so, make sure you're as diligent as possible about keeping up with your schedule, arriving on time, and triple checking everything. Second of all, if you're a student or thinking about going to school, you better be checking your email 50 times a day. Miscommunications, scheduling mishaps, or issues registering for class are pretty likely now, but don't worry. Your sign's getting a more easy breezy retrograde than usual, so don't expect too much drama. So Libra is one of the lucky signs that, you know, this Mercury retrograde is not gonna affect that much. But of course, Libras also have to be mindful. You know, it's not like it's not going to affect you at all. So just be mindful of all the, you know, of all the miscommunications, you know, that can happen. Scorpio, stay on top of your bills, Scorpio. Your chart's eighth house, which governs debt, is being lit up by this retrograde. Unexpected bills, surprise expenses, etc., are showing up to your mailbox because you've really just been on top of your finances lately. You haven't been on top of your finances lately. You're not going to go from balling on a budget to totally broke by any means, but seriously keep an eye on your bank account. So for Scorpio and for Taurus, you know, the emphasis is on money and managing your money, you know. So yeah, so keep an eye on your finances, you know, keep an eye on your finances, and make sure that everything is, you know, balancing out. Sagittarius, this retrograde is directly impacting your relationships. If there are any imbalances, hidden feelings of resentment or jealousy, or secrets between you and your partner, they're certain to come up. Your job right now is to listen. Don't open your mouth every single time you want to make a remark. Once you can hear out your partner without reservation and honestly communicate your own wants, needs, and feelings, then you'll be able to successfully solve the drama. So there's many common themes, you know, for all the signs. I mean, finances, you know, miscommunication in relationships. I mean, that is a common theme, you know, that's going to affect all the signs, but I mean, it's highlighted even more, you know, for Sagittarius. And, you know, anytime, you know, I'm a life and relationship coach, and anytime that you have a problem in a relationship, the most important thing is to be able to talk about whatever problem you have, you know, in the relationship, right? Communication is one of the key elements, you know, in a relationship. If you don't have good communication, you know, yeah, you're not going to have a successful, you know, sustainable relationship. And another thing to keep in mind in relationships as well is that when you think about like a potential relationship or a relationship that you have, think instead of thinking, what am I going to get from the relationship? You know, think about like, what am I going to give in the relationship, right? So don't be in a relationship expecting like to get things all the time, right? Think about like, what am I going to give? What am I going to offer the other person? And of course, you know, like there has to be a balance between the giving and the taking. But many times, you know, one of the reasons that many relationships fail, you know, is because, you know, people approach it in the wrong way. People are thinking, what am I going to get from this other person, right? What is this other person going to give me, you know, which I don't have? And if you think about it that way, you know, your relationship is not going to last. So think about what is it that you can offer? What is it that you can give, you know, to the other person? So that's something to keep in mind for Sagittarius and for all the signs and relationships in general. Capricorn, work, and more work is on your schedule this Mercury retrograde. You're not being assigned more work, however, you're just having to deal with loads of busy work from the past that you swept to the side. So even life at home is starting to feel extremely unorganized, and that's because it is. How can you survive? Spend this retrograde fixing your schedule, taking better care of yourself, and tidying up. And you'll find your way to a less stressful, more productive lifestyle. So for Capricorn, and I mean for everybody really, you know, it's about like it's about organizing and tidying everything up, you know, in your life, right? Like making sure you know, thinking about, you know, what are things that you can do in your everyday life, you know, to that will improve your life, right? And the way that you change your life is by changing your habits. You change your habits and you change your beliefs as well, right? But habits is a huge one. Habits is a huge one. And especially, you know, whatever habits you have at home. And of course, you know, now during lockdown, you know, we've spent so much time at home that we've had to come up with different routines and different habits and different schedules. But I think that now is a good time to reevaluate all of that, right? Like, what kind of habits do you have? What kind of schedules do you have? And what can you do, you know, to improve them and to improve your life in every way. Aquarius. As far as Mercury retrograde goes, this one's not so bad. Who or what used to spark passion in your life? And why did it fizzle out? Now's your chance to reconnect with old jobs, projects, or hobbies that you used to love and start to bring them back into your life if you think they're worth it. This is also your chance to find the lost spark in your relationship, or discover that your relationship's not worth saving and start moving on to the next best thing. So again, for Aquarius, you know, the message is, you know, reevaluate, right? But I mean, but this message applies to everybody in Mercury retrograde now at all signs. Really like look at all the different aspects in your life, look at all the different areas of your life and reevaluate where you are and think about where you want to go and how are you going to get there, right? So, so think about, old jobs, projects, hobbies, all of that, right? And you can reevaluate in many different ways. I mean, you can write about it, you know, you can do like a big, you know, you can declutter and get rid of things. I mean, that's really powerful, you know, to, because many times we hold on to things from the past. And when you're holding on to things from the past, there's no room for like new experiences and new people to come into your life, right? So decluttering is a very good practice to do, especially now, you know, that it's, you know, it's the summer and it's like, you know, it's a really beautiful time with beautiful weather. And actually talking about relationships right now is an incredible time for relationships. Like I'm calling this the summer of love, you know, because the way that the planets are aligned, you know, in June and July, you know, if you're looking for a relationship or if you want to improve the relationship that you have, I mean, now is the time to do it. Well, after Mercury retrograde, but even during Mercury retrograde, because I mean, Jupiter is in Pisces right now, and that's really helping relationships as well, right? But of course, the most important relationship, you know, is the one with yourself, right? So you start with yourself, you work on the relationship that you have with yourself, and then you'll be able to, you know, attract somebody that's on the same, you know, frequency and vibration that you're on, right? But yeah, now is really, it's a really, really powerful time for relationships, especially after, I mean, Mercury retrograde finishes on the 22nd of June. So actually, right, like from the 22nd of June until the end of July, like that month is like, you know, that month is really, really powerful for relationships because Jupiter is still in Pisces, and Venus, you know, Venus is going to be in a really good placement as well. So yeah, so if you want a relationship, you know, this is the summer. This is the summer to find a relationship because, you know, the stars and the planets are aligned, you know, for love and relationships. Pisces. So life at home is getting a little wild. You're likely dealing with an appliance or two breaking down, But if you can't get it fixed, do your best to avoid purchasing anything new before the retrograde ends. This is also a tough time for moving. Make sure you're triple checking the fine print on your lease. If you absolutely need that new coffee pot or have to move, don't let this retrograde's wonky vibe stop you. Just make sure you read all the fine print on the return policy or your new lease. You know, and I mean, for Pisces, yeah, you know, it's highlighting to look at, you know, leases or any kind of contracts that you're signing, but this applies for all signs now in Mercury retrograde. Be really careful. If you sign something, you know, like read it 5 times, you know, read it 5 times before you sign something. So, so yeah, so that concludes the presentation, and I'm going to stop the recording now.